Hey everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I'm Justin, and I'm a sexual tyrannosaur.
Wow.
I'm Nico, and I'm the Predator, my arch nemesis in real life.
I'm Dan, and I'll be playing the role of Chris Hansen.
And we're... Oh no. And...
Oh no!
And we're here today to discuss Predator. Jesus. So this is directed by John McTiernan, and it's starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dutch, Carl Weathers as Dylan, you son of a bitch, Jesse Ventura as Blaine, Bill Duke as Mac, Shane Black as Hawkins, Elpidia Carrillo as Anna, and Kevin Peter Hall as the titular Predator. So we open with a spaceship launching kind of like a shuttle probe at Earth. We then cut to a special retrieval military unit led by Dutch and consisting of Dylan, Billy, Mac, and a couple other members. Their mission is to retrieve hostages held in a jungle compound. So Dutch's group arrives and discovers the bodies of U.S. Green Berets literally skinned and left like butchered meat. They're kind of fucked up by that, but they move on. They then lay siege to the compound in a fiery blaze. Afterwards, they discover that there were no hostages, and the mission was really kind of like a setup to just destroy the enemy force before they could cross the border. And trust me, they definitely destroyed that enemy force. While this was all going on, though, the unit was actually being watched by an invisible observer. Nico, why don't you shed some light on the situation?
So, having completed their mission, the group head back towards their rendezvous point when the unseen observer begins to take out their unit one by one, almost like he's toying with them. Billy senses this presence and warns the group, but the warning is largely ineffective since Mac and Dylan are both killed by the unseen foe. Dutch attempts to engage this unseen adversary, but he falls off of a waterfall and he lands on a muddy bank. To his surprise, the alien follows him, but he can't see Dutch while he's covered in mud, and he decides to use this to his advantage.
Dan, why don't you go ahead and finish the rest of this for us?
So Dutch decides to cover himself completely in mud and constructs several traps, then lets out a bellowing roar to challenge this unseen creature. His adversary appears, and the two engage in a deadly dance of death, each attempting to outwit the other.
Nothing else, just outwit.
Just outwit. Dutch damages his invisible enemy, disabling its camouflage and rendering it visible. The creature also decides to remove its helmet to reveal its true form, a gruesome alien. Dutch manages to mortally wound the creature, and as a final play, the creature self-destructs, with Dutch narrowly escaping. The movie ends with Dutch on a helicopter, having escaped his ordeal. The end.
Mm-hmm. Short, sweet, and to the point. So let's go ahead and kick it off from the jump, shall we? Nico, how does this movie look?
It looks really, really good, I have to say, particularly given the time. This is a movie that is full of just lush forest, and it is a particularly nice looking setting to begin with, and seeing that combined with some moments of, I think, surprisingly good cinematography and just coloring, I think it looks pretty good, all things considered.
Agreed. I personally really liked a lot of the shots where, the Predator only sees in thermal vision for like 99% of the movie.
Right.
So I really dig like the way, and it covers both the conveniences and inconveniences of seeing like that nonstop. I also like just generally the jungle. It was very jungle-esque. I can attest to that. So I liked it personally.
Did you have any flashbacks while you were watching this, Justin?
Yo, best believe. Also, super side, thank you for reminding me, Nico, but super side quick note. I did watch this movie in kind of, multiple formats. I, took that opportunity, one of which was definitely 4K HDR, as I have the capability to do.
Oh, sure. Yes,
and
of course.
I will say for the HDR remaster, they did a damn good job with that, actually. The colors really pop on that. The lighting is fucking excellent. So just for any of our prestige viewers out there, know that it looks very nice. But Dan, why don't you go ahead and tell us your assumptions or viewpoints?
I largely agree with both of you. Just one thing I want to bring up is that the parts where Predator is invisible, at first I was like, "Ah, I don't really like that, but it kind of grew on me and I liked it.
Yeah, same.
And it's like this like camouflage kind of thing, like chameleon. They describe him like a chameleon. And I was actually kind of reading about how they did that because I really wanted to know, because this was back in the 80s. They didn't have like CGI at that point anyways. So it was actually kind of cool because they had somebody running around in a bright red suit, which was the farthest opposite that they could get of the green jungle and like the blue sky and everything.
Makes sense.
And then with chroma key techniques, they removed the red later on in post, leaving an empty area. And then they refilmed the same take without the actor, but using a 30% wider lens on the camera. So when the two takes were combined, the jungle from the second take filled in the empty area. But because it was with the wider lens, there's like this really scene bending, background bending thing, which I thought was nuts. I thought that's a really, really cool way to do that.
That's a really ingenious way to do that.
Yeah, and I just really like that, and I think that attests to the crew using their knowledge of the tools that they have at their disposal to create their desired effects, you know.
And now, I guess, Dan, I want you to keep going here a little bit. How do you think this movie sounds?
The sound I thought was okay. I like the Predator sound, the like clicking and like when it like shouts once or twice or whatever. But is just clearly almost all of the dialogue is overdubbed. It's pretty obvious back in this time frame, you know, the 80s. A lot of movies were like that, and sound obvious, I should say. But I mean, overall, I thought it was okay.
I also definitely liked it. I like a lot of the dialogue in the movie as well. There are some ridiculous fucking lines that get exchanged in this movie. And to be completely blunt, sometimes when we review older movies, there's, you know, maybe like language, phrases and stuff like that we typically wouldn't, you know, say nowadays. One exception aside in this movie, it's kind of right at the start, but one exception aside, they really don't, like, it's pretty current. Like, they really don't do too much, you know what I mean, out of the blue. Nothing really super racist or anything like that. So definitely, definitely some points there because, I don't know, like, just a whole bunch of soldiers going to blow up like a random, you know what I'm saying, like, unknown Central/South American kind of area could potentially go that way, but it didn't. So I was like, all right, fair play here. But yeah, I like the way the movie sounds, and some of the themes in it are really cool as well. Particularly when like the Predator is stalking them. I really like that. But Nico, how about you?
I have to say the soundtrack in this kind of fucking whips. Like, it goes really hard, I think, sometimes, just the way that everything is arranged in this very bombastic, over-the-top, almost like hyper Indiana Jones-esque mixed with the sort of grandiose orchestration of some of the films we've seen like in the 60s and stuff. And it was very over the top, just like the way everything else in the movie is, and I just thought it fit really well and was something that was much more fun than I was anticipating.
Okay, all right. So let's go ahead now and let's start with the discussion we haven't had, I would say, in a long while. But this is obviously a horror podcast. We only really review horror things or things that might be horror adjacent. I will admit, in my mind, Predator kind of just squeaks over that line for me, but do you guys consider this movie to be horror? And what's your general take on the horror side of this movie, if you do think there is one?
I don't think it's horror.
Oof.
I think it's damn close. I think it just squeaks under the line. I think it's an action film with maybe a touch of sci-fi thrown in there, though I actually, maybe a hot take, I don't really think it's that much of a sci-fi film either.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean, a lot of people are like, oh,
Really?
it's sci-fi, which, I mean, yes, there's an alien in it, but I think it's very predominantly an action film that just
Okay.
happens to have
Sure.
an alien as a bad,
Sure.
you know. But I don't think it's horror because of the soundtrack. I think it's too bombastic. Not only the soundtrack, but just the thing, like when they just blow everything up. Like there's a couple scenes where they just blow everything up. And I think that just the movie in general is a little bit too bombastic and a little too lighthearted in too many places with the one-liners and things. Now, that's not to say that horror movies can't have a little bit of that. I just think it happens too often for me to classify it as a horror movie. But it's darn close.
Nico, how about you?
I will say it felt very much like a action movie, like both of you have said, right up until the last third or so, where the pacing becomes much more intimate with it being only Arnold and, the Predator on the scene at any time. And those moments were definitely tense, but I think I side. I don't know. This is something that I think could change depending on the day you ask me, honestly. Like today, I'm feeling this is more of a action movie, but tomorrow I could still classify it as horror, I think.
So I'm gonna come in with the jungle perspective here.
Ooh.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this. To me, this is horror. Now, again, like I said, just barely squeaking over the line here. I think this is a movie that starts off as an action movie, and I think it evolves into a horror piece. Now, the reason why I say that is we obviously start out with our heroes, the unit, in kind of full control, right? They show up, they kill everything, fiery explosions, all that jazz. The Predator starts attacking them, and all of a sudden they're being assailed by a foe they can't see. They reference, like a demon who takes, trophies of men or whatever else like that. They do these things. They're scared. They're literally scared. They're hiding. They're setting traps. They're doing a lot of things that we see characters in horror movies do.
There's a lot of gore too.
Yeah. And it's the kind of thing where the killing is not so, it becomes, as to your point, Nico, the killing becomes more personal. It's not as impersonal as the grenades and the explosions from the beginning of the movie. It becomes like a wound through the chest or being stabbed and dragged away. That kind of stuff to me, and the way in which it's done, I think that lends it more so towards being a horror. Also, we have the whole aspect of really kind of lampshading the creature not being seen, because it kind of takes that and puts it on its face, because the creature's right there in the open, you just can't see it.
Yeah.
And I do kind of like that. I kind of view it as a little bit of a clever flip of the trope. And many times when we do see the creature, the Predator, non-camouflaged, it's its hand kind of menacingly moving over something. And I don't know, for me, I find hands really freaky. I don't know why, it's just me. But hands can kind of creep me out sometimes. And that hand did a good job with how it was kind of moving across and everything else like that. It pleased me greatly. So I definitely liked that. And yeah, for me, it just edges it over to horror. But I mean, I don't know. I guess we on the pod here, I think we're pretty evenly split. We got Dan one way, me the other way, and Nico, straddling either side of the fence.
Yep.
So I guess there's that. Now, Nico, I didn't get to hear enough of you last time, so I want to hear you right now, right?
Okay.
It's well known on the podcast that you are a great fan of Alien. You've even gone so far as to feel so strongly about the rating you gave Alien when we watched it back in the day that you retroactively bumped up your score because you are a big fan of that movie.
Yep.
Predator is often seen as a counterpart to Alien almost. Not quite the same movie, but the two have been pitted against each other in multiple movies, comic book adaptations, all that. What about Predator makes it so that it's so easily and readily paired with Alien?
I think it has to be the way that, like you were saying, the movie kind of flips the traditional pacing of an action movie on its head and leans more into the more personal, like predator-prey relationship that you see in a lot of horror movies. And on that note, I have to say just the titling of this movie, very well done. Very well done. It fits everything. It's simple. It's identifiable. It's kind of iconic. And I think that is a facet that goes over into other aspects of the movie. I think this, for whatever it is, all the sum of it is greater than the parts. I think it's just a really iconic flick. The design of the Predator fucking rules, which is a huge plus too.
Dan, having seen both Alien and Predator, not drawing from anything else besides those two films, do you see the logic in maybe having future movies, comics, and stuff like that where the Predator fights, the alien or aliens, as it would be? Do you like that matchup?
I don't really see why they did it. I like it.
Interesting. Okay.
So don't get me wrong. I like it. It's enjoyable. I'm glad they did it, but I don't know the rationale. I feel that the rationale is just, oh, hey, here are two films in the horror sphere, and where an alien is the bad guy. Let's just go ahead and pit them against each other, like fan service almost, And it worked. Don't get me wrong, it worked, but I don't really personally see a good reason why they would fit in the same universe and whatever.
That's fair. Now, real quick, I also want to talk to you guys a little bit about just the general existence of, the Predator. So Anna, who's a character we'll talk about a little bit later, she mentions, again, like I said earlier, how sometimes in the jungle in extremely hot summers, men would be attacked, go missing, they'd be killed. And they talked about a creature, a demon that would take trophies from men, like their organs, spines, skulls, etc. That's the only explanation we ever get, although we as the viewer see the Predator coming from some kind of alien vessel. Now, do you think that's enough explanation as far as the Predator? Did you want more, or did you like what we got?
I liked what we got, honestly. I think that was one of the strengths of its design, combined with the fact that we don't see much of it in person, or up close rather, until much later on in the movie. They did the pacing of revealing it very well. And I think the fact that it was just so alien and menacing as to not really get too much of an exposition dump is, in this case, one of its strengths.
Dan, you in agreement? Because I pretty much am.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've talked in the past in some reviews about movies like over-explaining things. I don't think we need an explanation. Like, I enjoyed there just being a random alien in the middle of the jungle killing people. I actually could have done without the very first opening scene. I don't dislike it. Like, I don't mind it being there, but I could have done without that too,
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot it was there until we started recording.
Yeah. So I think it kind of leaves it open for sequels in the future, which, I mean, obviously there are sequels, but we approach these reviews as if we don't know about sequels, but I think it kind of gives room for an expanded franchise.
That definitely makes sense. Now, I want to ask real quick about one of the characters. So, Anna, she is a character that our squad runs into after they kind of raid the compound. Anna is there. Do you think she has a point or a purpose in this movie? Largely what she does is she tries to escape a couple times. She bears witness to one of the group being basically killed by the Predator. She's the only person for some reason who notices this like radioactive glowing blood when the Predator is wounded. And she offers that little backsight that I've talked about already into what the Predator might be. And then she basically is told to get to the chopper, of course, and she's there at the end of the movie. She lives. The only two survivors of the group are her and Dutch. So do you think that Anna played a necessary role in this movie? Do you think her exposition could have been given to Billy, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that point there. I think either Billy or some other character could have achieved what she did. I don't really see the point of her character. I mean, I thought she was going to play a much larger role, and then she didn't. And like when when she first sees the alien blood, she doesn't tell anybody about it. And I was like, oh shit, is she in like cahoots with the predator or something? Or like, or is she trying to like draw the predator here to kill them so that she can escape or something? No, she just doesn't tell them because I don't know why. And then she tells them later. But I feel like anything she tells the crew is irrelevant, or like it doesn't, like, they don't listen to her. She's just like, I saw it. The jungle came and took him. Okay. And what does that actually do? What did you actually say? So I don't know. I wanted more from her character.
One thing that I found to be pretty funny is, so I would listen to what she said in Spanish and then listen to their translation of what she said.
Yes.
And then my favorite part was when the one dude who was translating for her, he didn't translate what she said. And then Dylan's like, nah, fuck you. That's not what she said. I'm like, wait, so Dylan speaks Spanish? But then Dylan never talks to her in Spanish. I mean, he does like once or twice. He does. But then sometimes when it comes to asking her questions, if he knew the other guy was bullshitting, why wouldn't he just ask? If he can supposedly talk in Spanish. Because he does multiple times in the movie talk to her.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the fuck is that about? But then the icing on the cake is she actually speaks English. Because when they get all the way through, she's like, okay, actually, here's what's going on. And I was like, son of a bitch. Like, you could have spoke English the whole time. And it's kind of funny. Like, it's obviously, haha. Like, she could have spoken English the whole time. It was just like trolling them. But I was like, yo, that to me was kind of comedic. But Nico, do you think that she, played a necessary role here?
I think okay. So this is obviously a hyper masculine film in terms of aesthetics.
I want to talk about that too. But keep going. That's the next topic.
So she is the foil to that. And I am not placing, the responsibility of encompassing womanhood onto the character of Anna in Predator, because that would be insane. But she is very much a foil to the others. The Predator doesn't go after her because she's not seen as a threat. She is, again, literally the only other, I think, woman seen on TV that's anything more than incidental. So I don't want to say
I think she's the only woman. I think she's literally the only woman.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I don't want to say it's tokenistic, but it's probably tokenistic.
It's going to sound kind of messed up, but I bet you it's true. They probably wanted a nice-looking woman from the region, as 80s action films were wont to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would literally find like a nice-looking, actress from the region and put her on. Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure this was actually her only Hollywood movie. Like, they literally probably just like, oh, like, we want to find a nice-looking young lady. And she was, I think, like 25 at the time. And this was her biggest movie. So I literally think that's literally what they did. I've seen it in many, many movies, particularly like martial arts movies. They'll do that shit all the fucking time. So
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's literally why she's there. But I want to talk, you guys touched on it already. So this movie is a real man's man, hyper masculine, you son of a bitch movie. Because I mean, like, you open with that fucking iconic kind of handshake arm wrestle between Dylan and Dutch. And the funniest thing is this. Both Dylan and Dutch are fucking ripped. And
they're like fucking Diesel, my guy.
And literally, Dutch tells Dylan, what's wrong? They got you pushing too many pencils at the CIA. And like, they're arm wrestling and like their muscles are all bulging. And it's like, okay, chill out, guys. And then, there's all the scenes. And I mean, every single dude in this unit, with the exception of like one or two, and they die pretty quick. But like, every dude in this unit is like big, jacked, ripped, whatever else. I mean, you've got bodybuilders, pro wrestlers, you've got everyone. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is where literally all these dudes get together, take off their shirts, which, by the way, don't do that in the jungle, but all these dudes get together, like, take off their shirts so they can flex extra hard and like pull down trees and shit. And I'm just like, all right, guys, I get it. Like, you all had to flex and let it be known that you're jacked as fuck. And then you have Anna, who's struggling to pull down a tree branch, and like she needs help pulling down like a tree branch, but like these dudes are over here like yanking down trees and shit. So I found that to be pretty funny. I mean, this is just par for the course of its time, right? I mean, it's the 80s. It's an action movie by and large. I mean, this is what it is, right? This is what people watch it for, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think hopefully not a hot take, maybe, I don't know, but I don't think every movie needs to be super deep
Very
and
true.
subvert all the tropes as long as it knows what it's doing and
Right.
isn't trying to be
Definitely
something it's
agreed.
not or whatever. And this movie and action movies and similar styles, I think it's okay to have an all super jacked guys blowing shit up kind of movie.
One thing that I definitely think, though, is, well, first off, there's a cool line where Dutch says, "My men are not expendable."
Mm-hmm.
And
he would then later star in a movie called The Expendables.
Yeah.
exactly. But, and that actually got me thinking along the course of, I guarantee you, if they were to make a Predator nowadays, like a remake of the first movie, I definitely think they might have one or two, kind of women in the unit as well. Probably as like because we see in Expendables too, how they have like women in the group, kind of like muscular action women, who can do similar shit to the dudes.
Muscular
Like they might not
Action
be as
Women, the new
Yeah, I mean,
series on CBS.
they might not be as like overtly jacked or anything like that, but they're still, like all action, doing whatever else. So I definitely think that was something that this movie was not. I guess the movie came maybe too soon for that. Like there weren't those kind of roles a lot of the time. Which, quick side note, one of Arnold's earlier movies, Conan the Destroyer, actually had like an action type chick in it. So I don't know, maybe, I guess sword and sorcery is different than military escalations with aliens, but I don't know. Maybe
What
that's just a
clued you
tangent.
in there, bud?
I'm just saying. Now, if Conan had been in this movie, it would have been a totally different movie, and I would have put my money on Conan.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know who else it would have been a different movie? If fucking Merlin was in this movie, it would have been different too. Fucking Godzilla was in here.
Listen, I still put my money on Conan. You have no idea how much I like that movie, and every day I search for a way to lie,
Bitch, I put my money on Godzilla.
and say it's horror and put it on the pod. But no, one thing I want to talk about as well is trivia, because damn, this movie has a lot of trivia.
Yeah.
And it's time to turn to the master of trivia. Dan, lay it on us.
So, like any classic movie, there's a ton of trivia, like Justin mentioned. We're just talking about sort of the hypermasculinity of it. So, one of the actors, Jesse Ventura, was apparently stoked to find out from the wardrobe department that his arms were actually 1 inch bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger's. So he suggested to Schwarzenegger that they measure arms, and the winner of the contest would get a bottle of champagne. Well, Ventura lost because Schwarzenegger had told the wardrobe department to tell Ventura that his arms were bigger. So good trolling there, Arnold.
That's
Good
great.
trolling. The Predator's blood, that sort of Mountain Dew green kind of color, fluorescent green, was made with a mixture of liquid from the inside of glow sticks
Oh,
and
Oh, sick.
some lube for texture.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
all right.
Did you know that Jean-Claude Van Damme was actually the original Predator?
You fucking trivia
Yeah.
thief.
Yep, that's right.
I was going
I
to say
am.
that.
Yeah. He was initially in the monster suit running around, but
Yeah.
the original version of the monster suit was too hot and he just like couldn't do it and he kept complaining. So he ended up being removed from the film and they redesigned the suit. And then Kevin Peter Hall, who replaced him, is like 7'2", which
Yeah.
is impressive because they had to have somebody, all of the everyone on Schwarzenegger's team was like bodybuilders, like tall, big bodybuilders. So they needed somebody big enough, And then lastly, the design of the Predator with the sort of mandible kind of things.
Yeah.
So that iconic look was a suggestion sort of from James Cameron.
Oh.
The designer guy, blanking on what his role is, Stan Winston, had met up with Cameron and they were working on Aliens and the movie Aliens. And James Cameron had mentioned that he always wanted to see an alien with mandibles. So Steve Winston added that in there in sort of an unofficial way that James Cameron had a little
That's
input.
cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I will say this. Going back to your earlier point, there's no way. I was also reading that Van Damme literally had a problem with being the alien and like always having like his face covered. Because basically he wouldn't really be in the movie no matter what.
Right.
Because
True.
even when he takes off the mask, he's still an alien. Like you're not going to know that's Van Damme.
Yeah.
And I also do agree with your point that, you know, he, at least in, you know, a lot of the movies he was in, he never really like, he would look silly. Like if he was fighting all those dudes, because initially the Predator was supposed to be like really agile, like, you know, like doing a lot of different moves, martial arts especially, because that's why you would have Van Damme. I almost feel like they got to the right decision in the end, because going for like, you know, like a 7-foot dude, it's just a much better look for the Predator rather than having the Predator be smaller, because the key is like, it's the Predator, it's big, it's coming for you. So I like that. Oh man, I forgot how tall the guy was who they had play the alien in the first Alien movie. I forgot how tall he was.
Very
tall,
fucking.
too.
I know
That's
he was
how tall he
huge.
was.
I know he was
Yeah.
very tall.
I don't think
forget
he
how
was
tall
quite
he
this
was.
tall. I want to say like 7 or 7'1" or something, but he was big. He was tall.
Yeah, they were both huge guys. Huge
Yeah.
guys. So it's time for the what would you do? And oh boy. First off, can I just say real quick? Once again, dear listener, we have landed in my realm, my area of expertise. Fuck you, Dan.
Okay.
You don't survive in the
So-
jungle like me, okay?
You're still a little sore about that, I see.
Yes. Who cares if that was like half my lifespan ago, bro? I don't give a fuck. Okay? So somehow we are all on a special ops team.
Oh,
let's say
no.
let's say maybe we were on a special
What would our
podcast
code
assignment.
names be?
That's a good point. If you were on a special ops team, Dan, what would your code name be?
Yo, I don't know. I feel like it would be like Slender Man.
Okay. Okay, Dan's code name Slenderman. Nico, what would your code name be?
Fuck. Come back to me.
All right. My code name is Cutlass. Okay, Nico, what's your
Ooh.
code name?
My name is Cut Fast.
No, that can't be
Wow.
your name. You can't be Cut Fast. Okay, from now on, Nico's code name is Italian Sausage. So
And you have to say it like that too.
no, that's how Nico says it.
Sure.
So let's say we just happen to go on like a deep jungle podcast assignment, or maybe I take you guys back to the jungle where I went.
No, we're trying to track down the lost tapes of Event Horizon.
That's what it is. And it's led us
Yeah.
to the jungle. And out of nowhere, and we're there with a bunch of other podcasters as well. Out of nowhere, like an invisible foe starts taking these fools out one at a time. Now, we got some gats, but like we can't see the alien. What would you do in those initial steps when the Predator's first taking people out? Would you do anything differently? Like what would you try to do?
I think I would have a panic attack.
Okay, Nico, come on now.
Come on,
I'm being
Italian
dead ass.
sausage.
Okay, I then use my like super slap to like take you out of it. And now you're back.
Okay. I think I would just immediately try and find cover and hide. Like, if this is someone who's hunting us down, like, fuck that.
You wouldn't try to escape
And go where?
to the rendezvous point.
Oh, if I, yeah, no. I would want to stick together, honestly.
I'm
Feel
saying,
like the
so
best
would
moves.
you not head to the rendezvous point if we knew we had one?
Oh, no, like, eventually, but I would, there's strength in numbers.
Okay.
I would do two things. One, what they did and like set up defensive perimeter and traps and shit. Because the rendezvous point, I think they said it was 12 miles away. That's a fucking
Yeah, 12
long way
miles.
away,
Yeah.
especially in like that kind of terrain.
That's jungle miles, bro.
Yeah, right. And then
Yeah.
two, I
Can't
would
laugh,
get on
Nico, that's wrong.
comms.
No, it's true. It's true. It's true.
I would get on comms, and I would just be like,
Motherfucker.
"Nah, fuck you. You don't understand. We're getting hunted down by a fucking alien, an invisible alien. I don't give a fuck how dangerous it is, how hot it is over here right now. Come here now.
That's fair. I would also suggest...
We also blew up all the bad guys, so there's nobody to shoot me down. Come on.
Here's what I would have done. I would have saved my fucking ammo. That's what I would have done. I wouldn't have just had the fucking arms race ejaculation fest of unloading everyone's guns there for a solid, 3 minutes. Bro, you killed more trees than anything.
So I would have said, and might just be me, I would have been covering myself in mud, bro. That's like jungle tactic 1.
Okay. What's jungle tactic 2?
Offer the white man as bait.
Fair.
Wow. This took a turn.
If you were with me in the jungle and I seen that ocelot again, bro, I'm pushing you down and running. I'm sorry, but...
Hey, that means I get to cuddle with an ocelot.
Bro, ocelot is not your friend, bro.
But they're shaped like a good friend. They are so friend-shaped.
Many things are shaped well and friend-shaped, only to be deceptively dangerous. Use your imagination. Now, I would definitely, cover up. I would definitely, use the mud to, I wouldn't know about the heat thing, but I would use it more so to, blend in.
Maybe the predator would see all the various ailments and shit that's wrong with me and be like, oh, he's already fucked up enough and leave me alone.
No, bro. He sees heat, not bitch. You're still in trouble.
Wow.
Pew, 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 pew.
I'd like to remind everyone on the podcast that Nico and I are friends. But no. So there's certainly that. But otherwise, I don't think there's really much you can honestly do if you're being attacked. You either got to attack back, like Dan was talking about, set up your traps, or die like Nico. So you have 2 options here. And I'm feeling the set up traps, bait it out. I see where they messed up was I would have carried more cutlass. Because even the alien was carrying the cutlass, kind of. He 3D printed his claw right fast. But I mean, I don't know. That's just my personal take. But now, let's wrap this all up, shall we? What do you guys think this got from the critics and the audience on Rotten Tomatoes?
I think it got really fucking high.
Give me a number, both of you. Give me a number, both of you.
I'm going to guess 87.
I was going to say about 80 for both.
Well, guess what? You guys are both close on the money. 82% from critics, 87% audience score.
Wow.
Count yourselves well done. Why don't you go ahead and give me your favorite scene and where you'd rate this movie?
I think my favorite scene is probably when they're blowing the whole village compound thing up, just because it's funny. Seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger and a bunch of other jack dudes just blowing shit up for a good 5 minutes was entertaining and funny. I thought it was a pretty solid movie. I wasn't super in love with it, but I had a great time watching it. A lot of great action scenes, some good one-liners and comedy in there as well. And then a little bit of horror and some kind of tense parts near the end as well. Good violence too. So overall, I'm going to say 85.
Okay. Put yourself sandwich right there in the middle. I am going to go next. I really love this movie. My favorite scene is, we discussed it earlier, I think off the pod, but there's a part where Mac sees the predator real quick and he just starts shooting this minigun into the jungle. All the other squad members show up. No one asks any questions. No one knows why he's shooting into the jungle. They just start lobbing fucking grenades, shooting everything. They deforest a solid square kilometer of the jungle just by shooting the shit out of it. And then no one says anything. And I'm just, he's like, oh yeah. And then afterwards they're like, nothing could have survived that. And I'm like, bruh, why did you do that? That was a massive waste of your ammo. Now you have no more gun. What were you doing? So I like that a lot. But for me, this film just encapsulates everything I like about the 80s. It's got the hyper-masculinity, which is both funny and endearing sometimes. I really dig the soundtrack. I love the faux. I like the violence. I like jungle movies. You know what I mean? I like jungle movies as well. So it's definitely something that's going to resonate a little more with me. So I'm going to put this up at a 91. I really dig this movie.
Wow.
But Nico, where you at with it?
So my favorite scene is the first scene with Dylan and Dutch. Just the scene where we get that iconic "you son of a bitch," and it's called the Predator handshake for a reason. Like there are a few moments in this film that are just iconic, and that's absolutely one of them. And the relationship between the two of them there, and the sort of like very almost homoerotic power struggle is kind of a representation of the way the movie is just so over the top. There are some problems that it has. It's not an ideal like monster flick. I don't think it's an ideal like war flick or anything. There are definitely times where it's maybe a little too over the top with the like phallic imagery and stuff, but overall I had a really good time. I'm gonna rate this one 71 because it's 70 fun.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So does this movie get a recommendation from the podcast?
Yes.
Yes, even though I don't know that I'll think of it as a horror movie tomorrow.
Fair enough. Now, probably not Golden Seal, given that we've all you given it a 71, Nico.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. For the record, I would have.
Really?
I love Predator. Predator's amazing, and the legacy as well. I dig the legacy. So
fair enough. I understand.
Definitely that. Any last thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, there was more to this movie. Like, there's a whole plot about like betrayal and stuff, but like that's not why you're here.
Largely irrelevant.
Yeah, right.
Well, if you like what we said or disagree with what we said, be sure to hit us up on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. Don't open that door. And you can check out this and everything else we've done on our website. That's dotdhorror.com. Until then, definitely stay frosty. Watch your back when you're in the jungle. And as always, dear listener,
Cover yourselves in mud.
don't open that door. Bye.